Hi, I'm Ramey. I'm a marketing and communications professional that is here to give communication tips and strategies to leaders to help them in both their personal and professional lives. Tonight, I wanted to talk a little bit about advocacy and how important it is to really master difficult conversations when you are an advocate. I really have a big heart for our advocates. And where they're coming from when they're communicating. In my book, Canceled, Mastering Difficult Conversations in a Modern World, I write about the language of advocates. It's called the fight language. And in all the languages that I write about, there are 7. The fight language, they're all rooted in a strong sense of duty. And our fight language is rooted in a sense of duty to justice. And so it doesn't really matter what aspect of justice they're looking for, but that really is where they are. They're trying to stand in the gap for people who cannot speak up for themselves. They really are trying to make sure that people understand what the challenges are that our marginalized members of society may be facing, and their language is a passionate language that comes from that space, and they want to make sure that they are really building the right bridges to helping people who are vulnerable. And so our advocates really have to master their language, especially when we're talking about difficult conversations, because it's not just a conversation for them. They really are going to that conversation with the hopes of changing someone's mind. And I've talked a lot in my videos about understanding the process that it takes to change someone's mind. I mean, that is it's slow. And if you're a very passionate advocate, you don't want to go slow. You want to change it here and now, and you're not afraid to speak truth to power. It's a courageous, brave language. But if we're talking about change, it takes strategy. And so I really want to talk about the sort of strategy our advocates should have in their approach to speaking to leaders who are like them that may want to solve the problem, or even partners who they want to understand these problems so that they can be a partner with them in doing very important work. And so they cannot drop the ball on conversations because of emotional mishaps or missteps. This is a tough language because it is a language of passion. And so they have to really think strategically and plan their words and be well prepared for what it is they have to say, because of that process of transforming and changing another person's worldview it's not a light ask. So let's just back up a bit. I do want to say that I love my advocates. I'm not picking on you all at all. You're a passionate group, and that is important. We need your voice. We need people to hear from you. And we need your courage. We need your bravery. And we need you to speak the way that you speak. But we want to make sure that you are speaking effectively in a way that people can hear it, so that they can at least take into consideration the things that they need to know, so that they can consider if they'd like to change. And so in my videos, I always talk about how this process of communicating is about truth discovery. And so in our process of discovering truth, every conversation that we have is an opportunity to change another person. We're going to walk away from this discussion a little bit different than we were when we came. Hopefully, that's your intent, is to learn. We sum it up. We're learning from one another. Learning doesn't mean agreement. And sometimes the mistake that our advocates make is they're looking for agreement too soon from people. And we have to think about the human nature, especially if you are going to challenge someone's intrinsic beliefs, their root beliefs that other belief systems are built on. And that is really going to be a slow process. So sometimes the most you can ask for in a discussion like that is to find something you can agree on. And so if you want to challenge someone, let's say you want to talk about poverty, first, see if your opponent or the person you're listening to agrees that poverty is bad. Now, you may not necessarily agree on how to resolve it, but at least focus on the fact that you and this other person you're intending to talk to agree that poverty is a bad thing and we need to solve this problem. That is something you can agree on most of the time, and you have to value at least that this is a person's intent to connect and converse with you on the fact that there is a problem here and we both would like to solve it. We may have different approaches to solving this problem, and that is okay. Understanding that you're going to have different pieces of this puzzle. What you're trying to find out is whether or not your pieces connect. What part of this work are we doing together? Are you a partner? Are you an ally? Now, here's the thing you need to keep in mind, that just because someone may not necessarily agree with your approach to problem solving doesn't automatically make them an enemy. I talk about this in my book, the difference between allies and enemies. And allies is not necessarily people who disagree with you. Allies are people who are in complete denial, or they're just dishonest. They've blocked any truth. They cannot take it in. They cannot accept the truth. They don't care about what it is. These are enemies. But people who just disagree, and maybe they have a different piece or a different perspective or a different approach to solving the problem, they really are allies. You just don't know if you're partners. And there's a big difference in that space. So you may be working in one corner, they may be working in the other corner, and guess what? All pieces are necessary. So it's great, our advocates, if you can at least get someone to say, I agree that poverty is bad. We're speaking on the high level. I agree that poverty is bad, but I'd like to work on it this way. Find out what is the commitment to getting them to work on it. And a lot of times our advocates make this mistake when they're speaking the fight language, is you want them to agree with you on every single level. You want them to agree with every single fact that you've presented. You want them to agree with all of your approaches to problem solving. You want them to agree with how you're going to draw those conclusions. And I hear this quite a bit with some of my advocates, is that when you come and you present your facts, maybe sometimes the other side may have their own facts, and you both may have very logical approaches to how you're perceiving a problem. But just because you both are logical doesn't mean you're going to translate the facts in the same way. I've worked with data and analytics. I'm a marketer, so I tell stories with data. And one marketer sees the data one way and another marketer sees the data another way, because that translation of what the data shows, that is totally up to us, our perspective, our worldview, where we're coming from. And we can't get mad at people for having a different perspective. That's just like saying I'm mad at you for being born in Tennessee when I was born in Ohio. There's nothing we can do about that. But you've got to go high level. Don't focus so much on the details as to how you're going to solve the problem. Focus on the fact that you both agree that there is a problem. You both want to solve it, and you're just trying to figure out how to get there. Do not be threatened by someone else's approach to problem solving. And if you find that they are a liar, a denier, or an ignorer, then you have established that they are a communication enemy instead of an ally. Don't waste your time talking to them. It's not going to get you anywhere. Don't waste time going any further. And sometimes what people do is we start insulting at some point because we feel insulted, or because we're really discouraged. But again, remember, when you are an advocate and your approach is to change a mind or transform a heart, this is incremental. Sometimes you just have the opportunity to plant a seed. So you presenting your side of the facts or your experience or new data, you've got to let that information do its work in that other person. And sometimes that happens over time. At least perhaps you may have led them down a rabbit hole of finding new data or doing research on their own terms. But you can't try to win the entire discussion in one setting, because you're asking a person to completely change who they are, what they believe in minutes. And people are just not wired that way. So many of us have transformed into these advocates over time. If you take a look at our social media 10, 15 years ago, we weren't these people. And we give ourselves all the room in the world to grow. But when it comes to other people, we expect them to change in a conversation. And it's just an unreasonable expectation. But even if you've moved them just a little bit, it's a win. It's a game. So advocates, please celebrate those small wins, because they do matter. At least to where they have learned there are a different world than what I know of. There are people that I've never heard of, people suffering ways that I haven't heard of. I care. Can I donate? I would like to be an ally. I just don't know the language yet, or I don't know where I fit into this. Give me some time to research or find out on my own terms. Especially when we're talking about Americans. We all need the freedom to figure this thing out on our own time, on our own terms. So no one likes to feel like they're being force-fed information and made to make a switch. Now, in the event we're talking like you're an advocate and you're talking to a leader who actually has the power to do this change. Again, give them some time. Now, we did this with sales. We, made a pitch. We would follow up. There's advertisements, and over time, we were selling a person through a process, through a sales funnel. You've got to take the same approach with your advocacy, because it takes time for people to make decisions, especially when you're challenging their fundamental core values. That's a big deal. And if they're willing to budge even just a little bit, you did make a difference. So I want to encourage my advocates today to please celebrate your wins. Celebrate your wins. And if you changed one mind, if you just dropped a little seed in there, the next person, they'll come and they'll drop another seed. I have one of my favorite verses says, one plants, one waters, one gathers, one reaps the harvest. So it's a process, and we're all working on this together, okay? So don't put so much pressure on yourself to change your life in a singular conversation. But I'm telling you, you did make the change if you at least presented information that they didn't have before and allowed them to take into consideration something that they did not know before. So sometimes maybe your goal should be to assert new resources, new research, and let them go down that tunnel on their own, and let them know, hey, look, if you've got questions, I would love to talk to you again about this. It's a process, okay? So be patient with it. Anyhow, I want to say thank you so much for joining me in this video. If you like communication and tips and strategies like these, again, there are 6 other languages in addition to this fight language that I'm talking about. You will find that in my book, Canceled: Mastering Difficult Conversations in a Modern World. Just visit on my website, tiaramey.com. You can also get it on Amazon. And if you like audiobooks, you can gather it on Audible. So thank you again for your time tonight, and I will look forward to talking to you in the next video.